I look back on my life, I don't think it was that terrible. I just wished I didn't have to pick cotton the way I did. All right, I'm going to start as far back as I can remember. I grew up in Arkansas. As a preteen, we lived in a little place right off the road, just close to Highway 81, which ran from California through Arkansas. We lived right off of that road, and it was called Dunby. And we lived there for a number of years. I don't know how many years. We used to go to church like about a half a block from my house. It was an empty house, so these sanctified people was having service there, so we would go to church there on Sunday morning. And then when they left, by then I was a teenager, and we would walk, which about 2 miles, maybe a mile or two, to Montrose. And we go to church at this Methodist church. I did. My whole family, all the kids didn't go, but I went. Anyway, and then later on we moved to Montrose. My dad and mom opened a little, I guess you would call it grocery store, but they had like in the front was like a restaurant. My mother cooked food, hamburgers and stuff, and she migrated to making dinners on Sunday. So people would come there and eat and dance and have a good time. And their house was right next door to it. But I got to tell you about growing up. I got to back up a little bit. When we lived in Dunby, my dad was what you call it, Sarah? Sharecropper. Yeah, he lived on this Caucasian man's his property and worked in his fields. So we would chop cotton. When it was time to chop it, we would chop it. You know, you have to get all the grass out between the cotton stalks, and so that the cotton could grow properly. And then in the fall, when the cotton unbloomed and put out the cotton, we had to go back and pick the cotton. So my dad and my mom had 7 children, 3 boys and 4 girls. We would chop on other farms too and get paid every day that we chopped there. So when we got our fields right, our crop right, then we would go to somebody else's crop. Okay, we couldn't start school with the other kids. You know, school started in September. We couldn't start school until all the cotton was picked. And with 7 kids in the family, we would pick a bale of cotton a day. A bale was a whole wagon full. Every family didn't pick a bale, but we did. There probably was time when we didn't get a bale, but pretty much that was our average. Every day, the family of 9, 7 kids and 2 adults. Gwen didn't do nothing, so I should say a family of 8. Yeah, she was a baby, so she didn't have to do much of nothing. And Gwen's supposed to have been a tumor. My mama thought she had a tumor. Yeah, Flora was 12 years old and she hadn't had no baby in 12 years. So she thought that something was wrong with her body. Thought Gwen was a tumor. Gwen showed her what kind of tumors. Oh my goodness. But that went on until all the cotton was picked. Each family had land that they had to cover. For instance, if you would leave here and go over by Shiloh, by the church, that whole south side, we might have had to do that whole, maybe not the whole south side, but a large portion, none but cotton field. It wasn't just like a lot, just like where a house could sit on. It was land. Yeah, acres, yeah. Yeah, and we had to do all that whole, we had to do the spring chopping cotton, and then in the fall we had to pick the cotton. And you pick the cotton, and sometime after you done picked it, it would get a little more cotton. You had to go back, and that's the part that we hated, because it would not be much cotton. But when it's first ready, boy, you could fill up a sack in no time. And then you had to drag the sack up to the wagon. They would weigh the sack and empty the sack into the wagon and give you your sack, and you go back and fill it up again. So that's what we did every day. Now that wasn't no fun, but the only thing that I think was fun about it, sometimes we would find a watermelon in the cotton field. I don't know if somebody had planted them on purpose. I think it was just, maybe it was in the seed, I guess, with the cotton mixed up. Anyway, that would be so good. Be able to get a watermelon and bust that joker open. Now that was good, but that's the only thing about picking cotton, and that wasn't every day. That was just once in a while. Growing up down south on the sharecroppers with sharecroppers was not fun, although we had fun on our own in our own way. Me and my sisters, when we were little girls, we used to make mud dolls and put the muda grass in the mud and let it dry, and the head would get hard. Then we could comb it. And that's how I learned to French braid. We had fun, a lot of fun with the mud dolls. And then when we was younger, we used to make paper dolls, cut pictures out of whatever magazines we could find and cut paper clothes and all that. So it wasn't so bad growing up. We jumped rope and we did other stuff kids do nowadays, a little bit of it, not much. But the thing about growing up, you had a lot of disadvantages. We didn't know nothing about no TV until we was teenagers. We didn't even know TV exists. I guess it exists back then. But we didn't have no TV, so we had to do other things. We would listen to the radio. There was stuff on the radio that interested us sometimes. Not all the time, just once in a while. And what else? We did not have running water. So we had an outhouse, out away from the house, in the back, away from the house, where we used the bathroom. And it was like a little wood hut with a seat in there, and you could use the bathroom. And of course, it stayed there because there was no way to flush it. So my parents would put lime, I think it was called lime. It was a white powder they would keep in the bathroom so it wouldn't smell. And what else about the no running water? We used to have to go to the pump and pump water up. You pump it till you get a bucket of water, and take the water in the house, and you drink that water, and you cook with that water from the pump. And growing up, our kids are, we all would know when the bucket was getting low, but we would tip around and make like we didn't know the bucket was low, so we wouldn't have to go out and pump the water. Didn't nobody like pumping the water. So we got in trouble about that a couple of times. But growing up was okay. It wasn't bad. But the one thing we didn't have, like people had pork chops and stuff like that. We only had good meat once a year in the fall of the year. My dad would kill his hog. He would fatten his hog up. During the year, they feed him good, and then in the fall, they would kill the hog. And of course, we ate every part of the hog except his squeal. And if they could have caught it, we would have ate it too. And with being out of school like we did for picking cotton, we still had good grades. We still passed and graduated on time. I don't know, I guess God just blessed us. Anyway, it was different, but it was not that bad. It really wasn't that bad back then, but now, of course, I probably would just have a living fit. But back then, there was a way of life for you. We used to want to go uptown to the store or something. It'd be dark, and my mother would make our brothers go with us. And if a car came along with white men in it acting crazy, we would go on the railroad track. And the railroad track was like off, the highway was over there and the railroad track over here. They would make us lay down on the railroad track, but we had to lay there until that car left. And instead of him just taking us back home, we laid there. And when the car left, we went on uptown and came back. My brothers thought they saw a white man, they made us lay down. As far as my kids, and even my sons now, I don't like it when if I know they're gonna be off somewhere by themselves. I don't like that too much, because that's an opportunity for the devil to step in. When they was talking about a lot of police brutality in all the different states, they were saying some boy was just jogging and they shot him for no reason. Up here it's a little bit different. Down there they don't hide how they feel, but up here they do. And down there, they won't just come out and be blatant, but the way they talk to you and how they look at you and stuff, you can tell from that. Yeah, they ain't trying to have no shame face. And the Ku Klux Klan used to be really bad in the South, too. You could see them in the field. They all was robed in white, from the head down, and they would be circling around a fire or something. I guess they would be having a meeting, but they would have a fire. And that's as close as I ever got to one. I never saw one in the daytime with their outfit on, but we had seen them at night in the field with their outfit on, with fire going. It was more of a normal thing down there. Kids knew that if they, said something or acted some kind of way, that they didn't know what the folks might do, but they know they would react. And they know that they would be abused and maybe cursed out or whatever. But we didn't have no problem like that because my mother and my dad always taught us, to be careful, don't be running your mouth, and, just stuff that they taught us. So we never had no trouble with none of them. But some of the kids had trouble with going anywhere, doing anything, because they didn't know how to act. And I remember one night a carload of white men came to our house and was trying to be like they was looking for somebody or they was lost or something. And my mother, Lord have mercy, she knows she was a scary person. Anyway, they was clowning so, and George, my brother, was there. And he told them, go down, because there was a white family in the next house down the road. He told them, you want to go to the next house. He was trying to tell them, go there, and they'll tell you. And they wouldn't leave. And when they finally did leave, my mother made every one of us get up and told George, don't put on no white shirt. And we had to put our clothes on and go way across the field to Miss Hattie's house. And that's where we stayed till daylight. Because she said she didn't know what they might do. I guess she was scared that they might just break in. Yeah. And she wanted to get George out of there because before we moved up there, the other house we lived in, this man that was always trying to flirt with my mother. I don't know if she was flirting back, I don't know. But he came to our house one night because they knew my dad would go see his dad, and sometime he would have to stay overnight because it was so far. Go over there, that's where his dad lived. Really all his family, he the only one lived in Montrose. And Mr. Joe Spratt, he was a black man. He came up on our porch scratching on the window and talking about Carrie. And George said, Mr. Joe, you better go now. He kept telling him to leave, he wouldn't. He said, if you don't leave, I'm gonna shoot. And he actually shot out the window and split Mr. Joe Spratt's bangs. It hit his hair, but it didn't hit his head. He wasn't trying to kill him. He was trying to make him leave. But the bullet did glaze his hair and parted his hair. That's why my mother had us all running that night when the white men was out front of our house. When they left, she made us all get up and leave because she knew George would get that gun. And because he wasn't playing, he was trying to protect the family. I bet you Joe Spratt didn't tap on that window no more. And I think about it today, we didn't have no pistol. It was a shotgun. We didn't have no, one of them long guns. Yeah, that's what my dad had. Didn't have no pistol nowhere. Yeah, went through a lot of stuff in Montrose, in Arkansas, period. I look back on my life, I don't think it was that terrible. I just wished I didn't have to pick cotton the way I did. But that wasn't terrible either, because some of the kids didn't even have what we had. We didn't hardly have nothing. Like I say, a baked sweet potato for lunch every day. That's pretty poor to me. But I don't know, my parents, they always gave us something, some little money or something for lunch, because we had to go 12 miles to high school. So we could buy us, they used to call them nabs. It was really peanut butter and crackers, about the size of a Ritz cracker, and they came in a little stack like that. And I don't remember how much they cost, but we would get that and a pig's foot. I had boyfriend one time. He went and asked my daddy, could he come see me? And I didn't like the boy that much. That's why it was funny to me, because I didn't even like him that much. And my daddy gave him the talk of the century. So he would come and we'd be sitting on the porch, and before it got dark, they would turn the light on. turn the porch light on. Then the boy I liked, I never would have told my parents I liked him. When I graduated, came to Milwaukee right away to Meridian House, and I came in 1959, but I was just thinking about what I went through when I lived there. I went to church, I accepted Christ, and I got saved at Mount Sinai Church in 1960. I had been up here for a while before I got in church. And then I went home for vacation. I came back. And before I left, Ramsey came to our church to run revival. Mother David them had been talking about getting him. I'd heard them say, we're going to get him down. He'd be good for Sister Bettie. They would be talking and think I couldn't hear him. So they got him down for a revival. He came to run revival. And I met him that Tuesday night. And I left that Wednesday, went to Arkansas, stayed 2 weeks. And I came back. When I came back, I told him when I would be back. So he called me and we went, Mother Davis and him came and picked me up. Mother Davis and the little girl went way across the park and left us at the picnic table. So that's how I got to know him and found out he was from New Albany, Mississippi. And we talked, and then he didn't come back to Milwaukee for a while, but he would write me letters and he would put them in a business envelope and send them. Every letter I got from him was in a business envelope because he said it was business. So finally in 1961, he asked me to marry him in the wintertime. Anyway, he asked me to marry him one night. He was dropping me off at work one evening. And I said yeah. So after that, we set a date a little later and we got married September 9th. That was in 1961. And then we got married in September 9th and he started church in December the same year. So we just had that little time before he started. And of course we started our family, having our babies and stuff too right away. So we had 6 kids from 1961 to 1970. Not even 10 years and 6 kids.
Everybody say Jesus. Jesus.
Ella Ramsey paid Ella Robbins. He was going to Mississippi and bring Big Mama, Willie, and Ernestine. Ernestine was really little. Willie, he wasn't no teenager because he finished school. He finished school in Racine. After he had been out, in Racine for a while. He graduated from Park High, I believe it was. After that, when the kids had to go to school, they had to pass right by her house. And of course, they would always be stopping at Big Mama's house. George would always end up at Big Mama's house, overnight, always. And one time she said he had the measles or something, and she put him to bed and wouldn't let him come home because she said, it wasn't good for him to come out in the air. Anyway, that was his grandma, so let her keep him. I don't care. I did care, but I let her keep him anyway because she was fussy, over George. But that was her favorite. George was her favorite. Before I came to Racine, I worked at Milwaukee Children's Hospital. I was a full-time nurse assistant until I got married and I moved here. Then I went back to school for a while. But the Gateway, is the school downtown called Gateway? Yeah, like a college. Yeah, I went there for a while. I went there for a year or so because I finished high school, but I didn't go to college. So I went there for that reason. And I didn't get no special trade because having them babies, I just finally gave up trying to get a diploma. And I continued to work as a nurse assistant in between having babies. And then I decided I went to a training for daycare, and we opened the first African-American daycare in Racine. In the church, in the little white church, we had it down in the basement. 1969. Mother Goose Daycare, and we kept it open until 1981. And then I decided to do something else. I forgot what I did. I started working for the nutrition program. Mother Frazier was my good friend, and that's what she was doing. And she talked me into doing that. We taught them how to budget their money and eat healthy food. There was nutrition, but we didn't have no degree in nutrition, but we had training how to do it. I worked for them for 13 years. That was the last job I had. After that, I retired. Oh, I didn't say nothing about I worked as a nurse aide, did I? I forgot about that. That's what I was doing in Milwaukee. At Children's Hospital, I told you that. But when I got married, and came here. I got a job at St. Mary's Hospital. Still had nuns on duty, you know, with the long white dress and long white thing on their head. And I remember this one used to ask me, "You pregnant again?" Like, you know, like it was a sin. That might be why I quit it, I don't know. But it's been a journey. It's been definitely a journey.